I was a single mum, and a lot of people would go screaming for the hills in that situation to go, man, that's baggage, not interested. I always wanted a family, and to be told you couldn't was heartbreaking. I thought, what do I do then? I'll party and I'll travel. It did get to a point where we were just literally at Loggerheads daily. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Nick came along a handful of months later and my whole world turned around. Do we still drive each other crazy? 100%. Do we want to kill each other some days? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot imagine my life without him.
Hello. Can you believe that we are already at the third episode of the Happily Ever Real podcast? Because I can't. I've been working on this project for so many months and it still feels unreal that I get to finally share this with you. But let's stop the yapping because today's story is very special. It's gonna be about change that enables you to get out of patterns that don't really serve you anymore, and how that change can enable you to find your dream partner and to build your dream relationship. We're also talking about creating your ideal family against all medical odds. And finally, we're talking about a couple who wasn't born perfect and is not ashamed to admit that. But it's a couple that continuously gets better each and every single day, committing to love each other more and more, because love is truly a choice. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you Nel and Nick. Welcome to Happily Ever Real. You have a wonderful story, a story that gave life to 4 beautiful girls. So we have Nel and we have Nick now on the podcast. I have a question for you just to break the ice. And also it's a fun question that I like to ask. So let's start with Nel. If Nick was a piece of clothing, what would he be and why?
I think I would say a hoodie. I think a hoodie because they're warm, they wrap around you and they feel safe. I don't know, there's something about a hoodie that you can just sort of snuggle into and just feel safe in that space. Yeah, I think a hoodie.
Love that. And what color would the hoodie be?
I don't know. I seem to always gravitate towards green, but a green hoodie doesn't seem very inviting. So maybe earth tones, like a sand or a beige or cream or something like that. It offers warmth.
Wow. Same question to Nick. What would you say?
I'm worried now.
I would actually say something more along the lines of a sarong. And it seems a bit left field, but it's that person who probably doesn't want to be retained, who likes to flow. Probably something colourful, because I think attitudes are very varied around seasons. So having something colourful can represent so many different things. So yeah, I think something like a sarong, because you can wrap it around, you can keep it tight, or at times Nel does like to just let things flow.
Flow in the breeze.
Yeah, and just be like, hey, let's just go and do it. And then like when you think about a sarong, you can tighten it up or you can just let it flow in the breeze. So yeah.
I find your response very interesting because I don't even own a sarong.
I know you don't. I know you don't.
I do like sarongs, but I don't actually own a sarong.
In fact, I was about to ask you, like, were you thinking about a specific sarong that she wore? But like,
let's talk colours and patterns now. Where are we going with this?
Yeah. No, I just think about like travels that I've done, and you think about how they move and you know what they represent, and yeah.
Free spirited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well, you might need to buy a sarong now.
I think summer I'm going to need some sarongs.
Christmas around the corner.
Yeah.
So maybe Nick's gonna give it to you for Christmas.
Matching sarongs.
Wow.
A moo maybe.
Well, I can't wait to see you with them.
Yeah, that will definitely be an interesting sight.
Definitely. This is an easy question. Let's start with Nick. How old were you when you first met?
I think we were 26.
Well, you're making him think now.
I think I was 26.
He was 27.
There you go.
27.
I wasn't far off.
Awesome. And how old were you now?
I was 25.
So my question now is, Nell, if you could tell your story like very summarized before of yourself, who was Nell before meeting Nick?
We often laughed about this actually, because if Nick had met me maybe 5 years earlier, he wouldn't have given me a second thought. I was a completely different person. Completely different. So, okay, leading up to meeting Nick, I had a son. I was a single mum. My son was 13 months old when Nick and I met. That was an interesting time. We never really had that one-on-one relationship to begin with. We were a package deal from day one. But prior to having Lockie, I was a party girl. In fact, I was told I would never have children. So my life was designed around nightclubs and podiums and substances and alcohol and working long days and living on energy drinks. So my life looked very different. So to find out I was expecting was, oh my goodness. I actually remember standing on a balcony of my 3-story apartment at the time at 11 o'clock at night with a pregnancy test in one hand and a cup of coffee and a cigarette going, oh my gosh, my life was not designed for this. So in that moment, to find out that I could have children, I turned everything around. Absolutely everything around. I was cautious of what I ate, where I went, who I socialized with. I changed my whole world. And obviously that situation didn't work out. But then when he was 13 months old, Nick and I met. And that's where our story really started. So
Thank you so much for sharing this.
I'll tell anyone. We all learn and grow, right?
And who was Nick?
Me, I was a country boy. So I grew up in Wagga in New South Wales. So my life literally for probably 18, 19 years just grew up around family on the farm and playing sport like all year round, all weekend. So it wasn't until I was 21, I'd just turned 21, and then I'd moved with my then partner down to Melbourne. So we lived down there for, how long would it have been? Well, yeah, it would have been 3 to 4 years, and then did a lot of travel, actually. So in that time, yeah, from the ages of probably 19 to 20, 23, 24, did a lot of travel. So travelled all around Europe and up around, yeah, through Japan, New Zealand, yeah. So I rented. So yeah, there was no house on the horizon at that time. So yeah, literally as money got saved, we just invested it into travel. So yeah, if I wasn't traveling, I was either working or playing sport, and yeah, it was pub meals and no clubbing like this one, but it was, yeah, pub meals, golf, cricket, touch, friends. Yeah, so very, very different. Yeah.
Wow. So
I was also very social, just in a very different way.
you were both free spirits, just in very different ways.
Yes.
Yeah. And would you say that once you became aware that you could in fact have children and you were about to have one and you completely turned your life around, would you say that you turned a bit more like Nick, or was it?
Yes, absolutely. Even though we're chalk and cheese, as soon as I knew I could have children, I wanted the home life. I wanted the picket fence. I wanted stability. And that, as I said, obviously didn't work out in that scenario, but that's what I envisioned. And when we met, we were both completely on the same page. We knew exactly what we both wanted. And it hasn't been a smooth journey, but we still had a goal. We still had a vision of where we wanted to be and what we wanted out of this life.
Wow, that was actually my next question, because I was curious about, because you were clearly ready to get serious, like have a serious relationship, build a family, a home, And were you on the same page as well, or like before meeting Nell?
Yeah, very much so. So, like, previous to meeting Nell, like, I was in a relationship for 10 years. So actually part of traveling together was actually sort of, I would say, like the demise of that relationship. So at that point we were actually over in England, and we'd split, and we'd gone our separate ways, and coming back to Australia and trying to refine my feet, and it was just like, wow, like single life is very different. Been out, going back out to the pubs and stuff with my mates, and they're like, come and meet this person, meet that person. And I was like, that's just not me. That was just not me. So I wanted to, always wanted to, find another relationship, because I was at that point as well where I was like, yeah, like I wanted to settle down and I wanted to have kids. So, yeah, the events in life happen for a reason. And yeah, so then we met, and it was pretty much like we sat down and went like, what's your plans? It was like, what were my plans? And, somewhere between, like a plait that, they intertwined, and it was like, oh, actually we both sort of want the same thing. Like whenever it was sort of meant to happen, it was meant to happen. But yeah. So.
You were already on the same page when you met, but Nell had to like completely shift her life to get to actually be on the same page as Nick, not knowing him. But I mean, even the timing just aligned perfectly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's always something I envisioned growing up, that's what I wanted. I always wanted a family, and to be told you couldn't was heartbreaking. I remember being in that moment, I was 21 years old, being told this isn't going to happen for you. And I thought, what do I do then? I'll party and I'll travel and I'll worry about next week's wage next week, because I don't have any responsibility. I don't need to worry about anyone other than myself. So then to find out that I could, I was like, it wasn't a mindset that I wasn't prepared to be a mum, because I knew that I had that warmth and nurturing to be capable of doing that. It was, my life is not designed for this, that I'm living in an apartment, my relationship is very new, all of these things. There was no financial security, I had no savings. It was quite confronting to think, how am I going to bring this person into the world and be able to sustain a life that they deserve? So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of work to do to turn that around, and yeah, it was a challenge.
Wow, very admirable.
Thank you.
Challenge. So I actually have another question for now. The particular situation that you were in before discovering that you were pregnant, have you ever, because you were of course afraid of not being able to become a mom, but did it impact your view around being in a relationship? Were you afraid you wouldn't be able to find a partner for life?
I had concerns because the relationship at the time, as I said, was very new and quite juvenile. So I didn't feel like I had that masculine energy in that space where they could hold space for myself and a child, to the point where I ended it when my baby was 7 months old, because I knew that it was not sustainable. It was not where it needed to be, or wasn't even heading in the direction of what I envisioned for myself and my child. So I felt that I would do a better job of doing it alone. With no mindset at the time to step into another relationship. I wanted to focus solely on being a good mum and good for myself. And yeah, then Nick came along a handful of months later, and my whole world turned around.
Wow. And Nick, like, how did you approach this child that wasn't yours? And like, how did you see Lockie, right? How did you see Lockie, and what was your relationship with him?
Yeah, like it actually, like right at the start, like it was, there was no hesitation, because I suppose from my side, I was the middle of like my siblings, and then in amongst like my cousins as well. So I actually had a lot of like really young little cousins. So being around, like when I'd go and visit my grandma and stuff, they would be around. So, you know, you'd be looking after like these young, you know, 2-3-year-olds and stuff as well. And I suppose initially it was, I don't know whether the word would be luck, but I suppose having someone step into your life, where probably Nell had done all the hard yards early. So, yeah, just coming in, I think, and being at that stage where someone is so early on in their growth and development, and probably being at an early stage where you can, I think, be part of that, you know, part of that influence and, you know, the grounding of someone, you know, to try and teach them right from wrong. And it was no reflection on Nell at all. But I think, you know, when there's only one person to guide, there's no like difference of opinion. So, you know, what is right, what is wrong, you know, what information do I gather? So that was, you know, that was really interesting to see, I think, early on over that first probably 6 to 12 months. Yeah, just what would eventuate. So it definitely changed a lot around that, you know. Also social circles changed, and
Yes, we stopped getting invited to things because we were the only one with a
Yeah.
child at the time. So we couldn't just drop everything at the last
Yeah.
minute and be at a dinner tomorrow night or something. We had to plan. So that made
and
changes.
that for me was probably the biggest thing, that actually not even like meeting Nell or meeting Lockie. It was actually the dynamic of my life where, you know, being that single person, and even I suppose meeting someone without a child, is you have that time that you can go out still, you can still have your dinners together, mixed
Date.
with mutual friends. Yeah, and all of that was literally,
Gone.
you know, like it was gone like straight away. It was almost like we still had our mates, but if you had to go out together, hey, you know, what are you and Nell doing? Oh, we're at home. Making sandwiches.
child.
Yeah, getting the kid to bed
Doing
at
bath
8
and
o'clock.
beds.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was no hesitation. Like there was zero hesitation in doing it whatsoever, like none whatsoever. So, yeah, probably just wasn't prepared for the dynamics to change as much as they had.
Wow. And may I ask, how long were you single after your 10-year relationship before you met Nell?
Yeah. Come back. I briefly, like super briefly, like dated this girl for, I was literally only a couple of months. And that was more, there was nothing serious about it whatsoever. And then it was just like, yep, this is not working at all. And I think I'd met Nell probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months later. I think it'd be around
it was
about
about
6
6
months later.
months, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was funny. Like I'm always been comfortable being me, but I missed that coming home to someone to just talk to, or just didn't even have to talk. Sometimes it was just the presence of being, like you come home from work and just knowing you can sit down with someone. So, yeah, so it was probably about 6 months, but yeah, it was at that point where I was just like, yeah, I'm 26, 27. Not saying the world was getting away from me, but I always knew, like when I was younger, I wanted to have kids earlier. So, yeah. So it wasn't that.
What would you say was different with Nell? Because you mentioned that feeling of like feeling at home with someone, feeling like you don't really need to communicate, you don't really need to, it's just like the feeling of getting home and just having someone. What was different with Nell than with your previous other relationships?
I would say probably some of the bigger differences was, I suppose, being with someone who, again, we hadn't, you know, there was no children involved, and was still, like my last partner was trying to really forge her career within marketing and stuff. So there was a lot of time devoted into that as well. So there was, you know, I was the early starter, she was the late finisher. So you wouldn't see each other for 14, 15, 16 hours a day. But then, you know, come nights, you could go out for dinner, or weekends, it was still that socializing of, you know, life and stuff like that. When I'd met Nell, it was the person who, you know, at the time you could see she was she was erratic, but in a good way. She was an erratic mum who was trying to juggle, building a life for her, for Lockie, being able to juggle work, the small business that she was trying to get off the ground at that point as well. So, there were the values there that I seen, that it's not just about like your own self. It was looking at what she was trying to do for herself, but also someone else. So that's sort of where I looked at it, and it was like it felt right, because I'd always wanted like that home environment. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. And I want to go back in time a bit with you now, and go back because you said that you decided to end the relationship with Lockie's dad when he was 7 months old, you said. And what was your relationship with Lockie's dad after that?
He disappeared for a while, which was fine because I didn't feel there was a lot of positive influence at the time. So that was okay. And again, it didn't make him a bad or evil person. He just wasn't the right person, and he wasn't ready for what I was envisioning for my future. And that's okay. We're all on different pages. But he disappeared, and then Nick came into the picture, and it sort of became, well, there's someone else that's paying interest here. I'm going to pay more attention. So it became a little bit rocky for a period of time, which we managed to resolve. But yeah, there was that time where there was no interest of reconciliation whatsoever. It was more, at the time, I probably wasn't as, well, I certainly wasn't as mature as what I am now, because it comes down to life experience. But all I saw was this storm cloud hanging over my white picket fence picture, and I really didn't like it. And I struggled with that. It was quite confronting, wasn't it? So when that all sort of settled down and we were in a flow, we had our girls very early in our relationship. So we were going through this peaks and troughs of emotion and roller coaster, becoming a whole family ourselves. And any outside interference, I was like, no, this is messing up our pretty picture here. And as it was, it ended up going away. But yeah, it was challenging at the time.
Wow. And would you say Nick became the father figure that Lockie needed at that time?
Absolutely. There was no steps in our house. At the end of the day, he was his dad. He raised him as his own. I remember being pregnant with Maddie, and Lockie was at a stage where he was climbing out of the cot, and it was very, very frustrating at night. And so Nick went straight to the baby store and bought a toddler bed and built it. And I remember coming out to get water through the night, and Nick's asleep on the couch, and the toddler's in the toddler bed, and the hands on the chest to making sure he's not rolling out, even though there was sides on it. He was wonderful. He was everything that I envisioned for a family. So I knew I had made the right decision. It just wasn't the initial picture that most people paint when they start a relationship. Ours started sort of backwards, and we went from there.
You mentioned that there was conflict with the natural father, of the biological father of Lockie. And would you say it was an issue in your relationship, or it was just something outside that you had to deal with together?
I would say it probably tested us at times, and I think that was more the fact that the relationship itself was still quite new. So we were trying to figure out who we were and who we were together with this little person who was always in the middle of us, which naturally happens with having children. To have that, something that we had to deal with almost daily for what we would now consider a brief period of time. But then it was our biggest issue. It was our biggest constraint that we needed to get through. So yeah, it definitely had its challenges and tested us, but it was just one more thing that we got through.
The impression that I get is that each bump that you encountered on the road, it was more like the two of you against that, and not letting the bump tear you apart. So it was more like you worked as a team.
Yes, it's had its moments, as I mentioned. 2020, we separated for, it ended up being 3 weeks. We were really tested. I had been going through some very serious health struggles. We were building a house. We were coming through COVID. We had Lockie in a completely different headspace to all of us, which really tested our marriage throughout the years. He's on his own journey now. We don't have any contact with Lockie, and that's fine. What he chooses to do is fine. But it did get to a point where we were just literally at loggerheads daily, and it was literally grinding us into the ground. And I called it and said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And so we separated for a few weeks, and it was by far the most difficult time for us in our relationship. But we stayed connected each day. There was no finality. It was just, we need time out. Like, this is just not working. And it was putting a lot of strain on our family. So we stayed in contact, and we were still seeing each other almost every day anyway, because he was connecting with the kids. But we realized that no matter what we had faced during that time, and that was by far the hardest time that we had ever been through, we still loved each other, and we still wanted to make it work. And do we still drive each other crazy? 100%. Do we want to kill each other some days? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I cannot, and I speak for myself, I cannot imagine my life without him. He's my rock, and you probably wouldn't remember it, but some of the listeners and viewers will probably remember there was a TV show called Dharma and Greg a long time ago. She was the free-spirited hippie that you would just fly across the country for a piece of blueberry pie. It was just, she was very, very flamboyant. And he was a lawyer. So he was like, no, like, there's plans, there's structures, there's things that we do. Like, we need to follow a rhythm. I remember years ago saying to Nick, let's just sell up everything and we'll just travel around the country. We can pick fruit, we can do this, we can homeschool the kids. And he's like, but that's not a plan. I'm like, but it is a plan. He's like, no, we need like a 5-year plan. I'm like, but that is a plan. So yeah, we're very chalk and cheese. I'm tea, he's coffee. I'm letters, he's numbers. But it seems to be working in business right now.
Yeah.
And what would you say changed after, like, let's ask Nick. What would you say changed now for you in your relationship after getting back together after those 3 weeks?
There was so many things that changed. Look, there's a lot of things that you're never going to change. And I think probably even the last couple of months, doing a lot of the self-development stuff that obviously we've all been doing together, is there's some things you can change and some things you can't. And it's just learning to accept the things that you can't change. And I think from Nel's side was probably, it's been a hard one to go from deep down. I feel it was always like, hey, I need a guy to be able to do this and do that, and I want them to change to be able to be more attentive or do this. But I think sometimes it is around what is the definition, or what is that person's definition of being attentive, or what is that person's definition of, I need more. Whereas you can feel that you are giving more or in certain aspects of life, but it's just around trying to find, I think, what's the equal on both sides. So from that side of things, there were so many things. It was coming back together. It was also changing my career as well. I'm still doing what I'm doing, but I actually changed jobs, and where I was probably doing 12 hours of work every day, but then I was coming home, and then we'd have dinner, and then I'd get the girls to bed, and then I'd be 3 hours back on the couch working. And so that was the hard thing too. And I think the change that Nell wanted to see was, it wasn't being strictly attentive to her, it was just being more attentive to the girls and her collectively, that when you're home, just be present. So the big one around that was when I changed my roles, even though I'm in a more, higher and more respected role than I am now. it was more around the mindset of going, go to work. You can still go to work early, come home. But then like now, literally, I don't open the laptop up. It might be checking email here or there over a busy period of time. But that's given us now the time that, you know, we come home. If we go for a swim or, you know, the kids have gone to the park, or there might be just something as simple as, hey, can we go pick dinner up now? Like, it's like, yep, we can do that. Like, let's go and do it. It's not, I've got to sit down for the next 3 hours. So the biggest change I think out of that for me was probably more awareness of, you know, what the girls and the family needed more from me than what I thought I was giving. And the respect was always back the other way. It was just that they just wanted to know that when Dad was home, that he was actually home. Yeah.
So presence.
Yeah, more around presence.
Not the attention, so to speak. It was the presence. That if I was talking to him or the girls were talking to him, that we were getting eye contact, that we had his undivided attention in that respect. And we understood and appreciated the fact that he had to work. You know, this is why we're doing what we're doing with our business, because we don't want him doing that forever. But knowing that he would come home and then put those extra hours in as well, it was hard. It was really hard to just try and find that balance. Whereas now we integrate.
Yeah, so what would you say changed for you? I mean, what did you change in yourself, if there is something that you felt like you needed to change for it to work again after those 3 weeks?
There was always an understanding and respect for what he did, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't have had the lifestyle that we did without him doing what he did for us as a family. It was more opening up those lines of communication, that we could talk and make eye contact and sit and have time together. Or, you know, I've been sober for 6.5 years, so he does miss those times where we would sit down on a Friday night and share a glass of wine and some nibbles and such. I'm like, we can still do that, just not with the wine. Like, if you want to have a wine or something, that's okay. I'll have a tea or whatever. But it's making those intentional moments. And have we had less of those lately? Yes. We've been building the business. The girls have got a lot going on in their lives. It has been a distraction, but at the same time, I feel like we're doing the work now, like the personal development and being here today. We'll probably go have some lunch together when we're finished. It's making those intentional little moments. Yesterday I had business mastery with Morgan, and I was looking at the clock going, I know what time we're going to run to, because we know Morgan. Yeah. We love Morgan. But I knew what time we're going to run to. So I'm messaging Nick going, any chance you could pick up takeaway on the way home tonight? Because I thought that is just a weight off my shoulders, that we can then sit down. He's picked up some takeaway. We sit down and have dinner together. It's just the simplest little things like that. It doesn't even need to be big, you know, showy moments. It's just considering each other's stuff that we've got going on and holding space. And definitely since doing the Dream Out Loud method has made a huge difference in that. I actually messaged Morgan personally about it, and I was like, you need to start branching into couples therapy now, because there is a huge market for it, and he would be incredible. But yeah, it definitely got us back onto the same page. I had been building the business for months, and I've always felt that we were, you know, different sentences on a page. But the more work I did, I'd said to Nick, I feel like I've gone to a different paragraph, to a different page, to a different chapter, almost to another book. And I said, I don't want that for us. I want us to be back on the same page. And we have. We've definitely gotten back on the same page. We still do our thing, and we're still our own people, but we have a mutual respect for who we are and what we want to do and where we want to be, and find a happy medium. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
I feel like this is the strongest that we've been in 18 years.
And I wanted to ask you, is it intentional when you talk with each other about your relationship and what's working, what's not? Or is it something that just comes natural for you? And I don't know, do you like have a routine? For example, each week we just sit down together and chat about what's going on and stuff? Or is it just natural, you keep it?
I think, look, it'd be nice to be intentional, but I think a lot of it is more very much like it can be just very spur of the moment, especially like with the 4 girls at home. You know, again, work, Nel, you know, taking the business. It can be just, hey, the kids are watching a movie.
Yeah,
let's
let's
just
have a
sit
quick
down.
chat.
Yeah, it is very much. It's been like that, and we've sat outside and just gone. Let's just sit for half an hour while they're all quickly having showers or watching a bit of telly. And we're like, right, shoot. Like we literally go. You got 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes. Shoot. What happened today? All right. And then it's like, Nick, what happened with you today? Bang. It's like, get it all out, get it all done. And then it's like, okay, so tomorrow we've got X, Y, Z on. So now we'll come together because there might be more time to then go. So now we've got an hour. So it might be that 10 minutes here or there, but then we're like, yeah, there's an hour here or an hour there, or, you know, something like today. It's then that intentional of, hey, been invited to do the podcast. Cool. We chat here and there. But then today has been good because we had 2 hours this morning to be able to go, okay, what's actually happening?
And then hoof it home so we can get the daughter to work. So, yeah. But Nick's right. Like, as much as we would love for it to be intentional, I think it's always been fly by the seat of our pants because we've had a house full of kids our entire relationship. I mean, we decided that we were ready to try for a family 2 months into our relationship. So Maddie came very early into our relationship. She was born just after. No, we'd had our 1 year anniversary together. Then she came along, and then we got married a few months later. But it's always been busy and chaos. So we would have one needing a feed, one needing a shower, one having to do bath and bedtime story, or getting lunch boxes packed, getting washing done, trying to still hold space for ourselves. It was literally talking over lunch boxes or talking across the dinner table or constantly interrupted by kids. That did become a big thing for us as well, that as much as we love our children more than anything in the world, they've always sort of been between the relationship. So now we're starting to set boundaries where we could be talking and we'll be like hearing, bum, bum, bum. No, we're actually talking right now. You're just going to need to wait until we finish. And they're like, what's these boundaries? What are you talking about? We have to stop talking. We're the center of your universe. And I have said to them, you're not the center of my universe. I am the center of my universe. I need to do my oxygen mask. You're just a planet in my solar system, which is incredibly important to me. And we all keep in alignment. But I need to take care of me first, or I'm going to hit rock bottom again. And I don't want to revisit that place. And I don't want to see my girls to see me have to claw my way back again. So yeah, that's very, very important for me to set that boundary and show them that we can still be empowered women and we can still do all the things we want to do, but we have to look after ourselves as a priority.
Yeah. And in fact, I also think that boundaries allow us to be strong and independent women.
Absolutely.
We need to learn to set boundaries, and we can't be the most of ourselves if we don't. So it's very precious what you did, and it can be difficult as parents to communicate boundaries with kids, because I know with my parents when there was a boundary I was like, why?
Yeah.
I don't like that. But yeah, it's actually very, very important. And like for your relationship you were mentioning, I can't imagine how important it is to set those boundaries, not just for you personally as individuals, so Nick and Nell, dad and mom, but like for Nick and Nell, for
Absolutely.
the couple.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would love to go back a bit and to when you met, because you were briefly mentioning to me that you met on like the equivalent of a dating app
Yes.
that I honestly don't know, but I'm very curious.
It was nothing like Tinder, that's for sure.
Okay.
I remember having that conversation with you about Tinder, how I feel it's such a surface app where you're literally swiping left or right. And whoever chooses to use it, that's entirely their business. I have no judgment for them, but it's very surface driven, that you're literally judging the person based on their appearances to whether you're ready to tap on them and connect with them. The app that we used, it was an online dating, it was RSVP. Yes, it was
RSVP.
RSVP,
Does
which
does it exist still?
I
or-
don't actually.
don't think it
know.
exists
I've
anymore.
never looked it up, to be honest. But it was very much. It sort of was RSVP, and then it became like eHarmony, those sorts of things, which were a bit more commerce, and then it became Tinder. I'm so glad that was not our time. But for RSVP, you could look through people's profiles, and it was very detailed if they were honest, of course. Our story is pretty funny because I remember getting a message from someone. You had to send a kiss to somebody to connect to show that you were interested. But if you wanted to have a conversation, you had to use a stamp, that's where they made their money. You had to pay for the stamp to send an email. So it was like posting a letter online, right? Which was pretty cool. It was very well thought of. It made it a little bit more personal for the online space. And I remember getting this kiss from this gentleman, and I remember looking at it, and we all had to have usernames. And his was Ruder79. And I'm going, is this just a player? Is this because that's not my vibe. Like, really? But then he used a stamp and we connected and we started chatting on the phone. I thought, he sounds like a decent person. Like, let's meet for a date. And so we went out for Thai on the 1st of March, and he'd asked me to make the reservation because he wanted me to make it somewhere close to where my parents were so I could leave Lockie for the night. And so I made reservations, and I didn't actually click at the time that this Poppy's restaurant was a Thai restaurant. And I always thought I didn't like Thai. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a disaster. We're going on this first date to a restaurant of food that I don't even like. And is this guy a player? What is happening? But I braved it and I went. I still remember to this day what he was wearing and what I was wearing. And so we've gone to this restaurant, and he was lovely. He was really genuine, and we were having dinner, and I said, look, and I found something that I liked. And now we love Thai. We have Thai all the time. But I found the courage to say to him, okay, so this username. He's like, yeah. And I've gone, Ruder79? Like, really? And he goes, I didn't even think. He goes, my surname's Mavrudis, and I get Ruder at cricket. I'm born in 79, so I just put Ruder79. I'm like, okay, so we're good. It was fine. And we had a lovely first date. But yeah, it was really interesting looking at this screen going, I don't know. So he was just lucky that I decided to, not worry about that and trust my intuition and go, yeah, he seems like he's probably a good guy.
Wow.
And went with it, or we would not be sitting here telling this story right now.
Had you not trusted that he was a good guy despite the name? Yeah, and sometimes as women, we pick up on like very little things and we make them very big, and we're like,
he didn't even click.
No.
He was like, what are you talking about? And when I broke it down, he was like, like, yeah, like that doesn't look good. You need to change that.
Because that'd been my nickname for probably 10 years throughout cricket. So yeah, to me it was just a natural progression of nickname. Like, yeah.
So we had dinner. We went and watched a movie, which he absolutely hated. It was Norbit from memory. It was Eddie Murphy movie Norbit. I thought it was really quite enjoyable. I liked it, but yeah, we had a lovely first date, and then we met 2 days later. It was the weekend, and we went to St Kilda Beach in Melbourne. And I thought, right, I'm really going to test this and see if he is the right person. I'm going to take my child with me. So I did. We went and had...
Second date?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we went and had brunch on Ackland Street in St Kilda, which was lovely. And then we went to the beach. It was the first time Lockie's feet had ever touched sand, so that was interesting. But Nick got straight in, changing nappies, came and had dinner with us that night. We spent the whole day together, and he pretty much never left.
That's amazing and very funny. Very funny.
It's definitely an interesting story.
What was it? Your first date on that app / soft online
On
website?
RSVP?
Yeah. Was it a website or
It was, yes.
a website? Was it your first date through that?
For me,
or-
no. I had been on maybe about a handful of dates beforehand, but just didn't align. I honestly didn't feel like the vibe was there for me at the time. I was so focused on being a mum, and as Nick said, I was working split shifts as well, and I was trying to build a small business. It was a lot. at the time, but I remember my parents saying to me, just put your energy into it, just really make a go of it. And I thought, oh God. So they sort of pushed me to really step out of my comfort zone and pay attention. So those other dates, I was just not interested at all. And then when we went on our date, I think it was more, I don't know, it was just energy. I loved the energy. We had a good time. I don't really remember what we spoke about a lot. Like, it was more just those brief introductions of what do you do, where do you live, what are you interested in, blah, blah, blah. Sort of like that checklist that you go through on a first date. But it was lovely. He instigated the first kiss. That was totally him. That was all on him. I'm trying to enjoy watching this really funny movie, and the next thing I know, he was like pashing me. So yeah, that was all on him. But there was a chemistry, and I loved that. And I didn't know how it was going to work because we both came from completely different worlds, but we just made it work.
Yeah. I do remember leaving, and I said, I'll message you when I get home. I said, I'll let you know. And I remember we caught up 2 days later, and she said, I didn't think you'd message. And I did. I remember driving back. I drove back to where I was renting with a couple of my mates, and I just dropped her a text. She said, hey, I'm home. And I don't remember whether you had responded or not.
Yeah, I did.
But
I did respond, yeah.
But she just thought after that, it was like, we'd had dinner and had a movie and thought, okay, that'll be it. But yeah.
I didn't have high hopes. Even though I enjoyed the conversation and the energy and we had a really fun time, I didn't put a lot of emphasis on, okay, where is this going to go? Because I was a single mum, and a lot of people would go screaming for the hills in that situation to go, man, that's baggage, not interested. But he wasn't like that, and which is why I tested the water 2 days later to say, let's see what you're really made of. Because I've got nappy bags and I've got a cranky baby / almost toddler who needs sleeps and feeds and all of these things, and he stepped up.
Wow. And Nick, because there's this voice running around TikTok that says, I know, that says that men just know almost instantly when the woman they're meeting could actually be a lifelong partner or their wife. Or was it like that for you, or do you think it's like that for men?
I think you can split it two ways. I think there's one part when people are, like the early dating apps. I think there's some part of it that looks at it and goes, there's got to be a physical attraction, obviously. And that's where I think a lot of relationships are even right at the start don't even get off the ground, because they'll look at someone and go, if I'm not physically attracted, I'm not even going that way. So from when I seen like Nell's photo, obviously, yeah, there was an attraction there, but there was part of it when I was looking through and going, all right, like I was looking through going, hey, there's all these single people. I was like, what about mums with, like women with kids? And I was like, well, they've been there, done that. And I thought there's obviously the maturity there to think, well, if you're prepared, to have a child and bring someone up, then, there's already those stages in their life where they're like, hey, I'm sort of past those certain points. So that's when I'd flick through and, there was the photo of Nell there that she was holding Lockie. And I was like, yeah. So, I jumped on and we caught up, and yeah, there was I seen a lot of insecurities. I could see a woman that was, like I said, it wasn't me trying to save her. It was nothing about that. I think everyone's got the strength to, stand up and look after themselves. No one really needs saving. But Nell had a lot of insecurities there, and I think it was more around her just trying to forge her way and keep a roof over her head, and for her and Lockie. So, I just wanted to be sort of part of that journey with her, and it was once we'd had dinner and, we went down to the beach, and it was sort of like you could see that there was the attraction there. I think one, obviously, good looking bloke, and, she was a pretty good looking girl, and, we seen the family.
changed.
But, you know, like we'd seen the family and
He
stuff and we'd met them all and,
Wee.
yeah, you know, I think you start to learn to appreciate people for who they are. So, yeah, once you start digging under those surface layers and yeah, we sort of dug those layers out pretty quickly, didn't we?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Lots of layers. We've certainly had our challenges over the years.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part was majority of them were external. And instead of us banding together, we allowed those to become a divide at times where it became tit for tat or feeling like sides needed to be taken. And it's not healthy. It's not. I openly admit that it is not healthy and it's not a good example for children. We've certainly over the last few years taken a lot of accountability for actions and behaviours that we have contributed to our relationship over the years and what it's looked like for our daughters, because I certainly don't want my daughters growing up thinking that that's acceptable and how a man should treat them if that's the path they choose. And I certainly don't want them having a negative view of their dad either for having any hostility towards me at times or the way I've reacted to the way he's used words. We want them to have strong independence, as we spoke before, you know, how important it is for women to be empowered, but them to feel safe in their feminine too. So connecting back to themselves and having that person in their space who has that masculine energy, who, like Nick said, you know, it's not about saving people, but it's about, well, I'm going to step up and show this level of authority, but at the same time, we can just I feel safe and secure. I'm going to leave that decision making to you because I feel that you are doing what is in the best interest for us as a relationship and as a family. You know, Morgan spoke about it in the relationships elements of Dream Out Loud method as well, that we have different expectations of ourselves and our partners, but if we're not communicating that in a positive way, then it's just going to become constant toxic energy, and we don't want that.
And it is difficult to communicate expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, especially as women, we like people to read our minds.
It's a lot. And then you become a mum and you have like 741 tabs open in your brain at any one time. So at the moment, we've got a lot going on because we've got one that's just graduated, one that's about to graduate. We have a lot happening in our day-to-day life. And so when I had one of my girls say to me last week, "This is so unfair. You're not paying me the attention. You didn't listen. You didn't remember anything that I told you." I'm like, well, I did, but I need you to also understand I've got you telling me ... and I've got her telling me ... and ... and then I've got Dad and I trying to communicate. We're trying to build the business and Dad's got work stuff. He's going away. We've got events. So forgive me for not remembering which tab to click on in that precise 30 seconds that you were talking to me, because my brain was still back over on this tab. Have I gotten something out for dinner tonight? Or where do I need to be tomorrow? Whose appointments are this week? It's a lot. So yeah, there has been moments where they're like, "You're not listening and you're not remembering." Put it on the calendar and I will check it every single day and I will check in with you, because it is a lot.
I love that. Put it on the calendar.
Put it on the calendar. We have a calendar that has 6 columns. If they don't put it on there, it is not my problem. Simple. You are all capable. We've actually started a family group chat, which we don't love them on technology all the time, but we text each other. So we've got Maddie texting us yesterday, "This is my roster for the next 2 weeks." Jazz is like, "Right, this is my Kris Kringle wish list." Like, we've just keep that line of communication over, and we should have done it so much sooner, because it has been a game changer.
Yeah.
That I can tab it all, and I'm like, Maddie's roster, right? I pop that into my calendar, and yeah. Communication. It's all communication.
Yes. You briefly mentioned masculine energy, and I know you're both familiar with feminine energy and masculine energy, and now more than ever, with like trends on social media, because it became a trend. First of all, I totally support the dynamic of feminine and masculine energy, but I also think that sometimes it can get a little too much, saying men should do this, and it's most of the times with men. Like men should do this, men should do that, and a high value woman is like this. And looking back when masculine and feminine energy, maybe you were aware of it at the time, but if you weren't, now that you are aware of the dynamic, what would you say was congruent with the feminine masculine dynamic in your relationship, and what was not? And if it wasn't, did you then step up and change something, or are you trying to change something in your relationship based on that? Or are there parts of this concept that you're like, doesn't really make sense in our relationship? It was a big question.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. I suppose, there's always been that, preconceived idea that, the man will go out and work and then he's going to do like all the mowing, all the gardening, the lady will cook, she'll iron, she'll clean, run the kids around.
So 1950s.
Yeah. Look, there's part of that, and I think between us that it's, there's part of it that still stands true, because I am the one that's out actually, physically, when I say working, monetary working, where Nell is at home, trying to build the business, and she's taken the kids to school on the runs and stuff like that. So, the definition of work is whether it's monetary or I suppose free. It is one of those two different things. So I think from my side, it's been working around not only with Nell, but also with the girls, it's what is the definition of a man's job to a woman's job. So that's been it's been an interesting one chatting with them around that, because, we'll talk about unpacking the dishwasher or something like that. I'm like, hey, we can all unpack, we can all repack, or, teaching my daughters now Maddie, who's got her car, is washing the car. It's not a man's job. That's just a personal responsibility of ownership. You just go and do that. So, washing their clothes or things like that, or washing a floor. If you've made the mess, you clean it up. So,
it's working as a team.
Yeah. And I think it's, from our side, I wouldn't say there's been too much around what's been the man's job or the woman's job. I think because from being at such a young age, more so the kids, we've been actually a pretty liberal family with the girls growing up, and we've always said to the girls, it doesn't matter what it is, like you can always just open up and talk. So there's never been, the guys don't hide their feelings, you can talk. I haven't always practiced what I preach. I've tend to held back a lot of emotional stuff. And it's only been the last probably 6 months or 12 months where I've really sort of, let my emotions come out. And the girls are actually like, wow, Dad, like, oh, you get upset.
Dad actually cries?
Yeah. And but I think too, it's been at an age where they're little, like you always wanted to protect them. And that's never going to go away. But now that they're older, that they understand the world a lot more, and, the world's not always going to protect them, and there's people out there that are not always going to be nice. And so, as a dad, you're always trying to pull the masculine thing and always protect them. But I think on the other side, it's, in my head, I step back because I go, as hard as it is, it's okay for them to get hurt, because we're not always going to be there. So to sit there and actually watch them go through the steps now and actually see them rebound and go, all right, Dad, you've given me the advice, but you've said go and sort it out. So to watch them now on that flip side come back and be like, oh, I did this, or I spoke to them about that, or I did this. And I went, how much better do you feel that wasn't necessarily even mum as a female, or me, me stepping in going, hey, I'm here to protect my daughter, to go, how do you feel now that you did that on your own? And they're like, yeah, like they feel now that, hey, if that happened again, Dad, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so, yeah, bringing those two, the femininity and the masculinity together to go, really, they've got to be joined, in so many different aspects. So yes, definitely there's the role for masculinity and femininity, but
when you bring the two together, it's a powerhouse.
Yeah. And I think from having 4 girls, living at home, like you got no choice but to bring them together.
And now, when you got to know about masculine and feminine energy, was there something that you changed in your relationship, or?
I I've known about energies pretty much my whole life. So, how's the best way to respond to that? I feel like I was in my masculine a lot in our relationship because Nick wasn't around a lot. He was always working. So I had to hold space for the kids from feminine and masculine. Did masculine overtake at times? Absolutely. Did I feel like I was devalued in my femininity? Yes. Was it intentional? I don't believe so. I don't believe at any one point Nick woke up and just completely decided to neglect or abandon because it was just easier. He was doing that role of that masculine caveman, hunter-gatherer, provide for the family, making sure there was a roof over our heads, which is incredible. And I have worked throughout our relationship. It's always been around the kids at the detriment of my career at times, but that's okay because that was the life that we chose. Whereas now, building our business, it's giving me the opportunity to have that time freedom to be available for my family, step back into my feminine and allow him to do his masculine thing because we're on the same page again. And I know I brought it up before, but the Dream Out Loud method absolutely did do that for us because it made us both accountable for where we played a role in our relationships and what our expectations were in our relationship, and just kept that vibration high. So even though I was doing all the events, Nick wasn't. So I was coming home vibrant and excited and pumped and ready to go to the next chapter, yet I felt like it was falling on deaf ears because he hadn't had the same experience as me. So for us to go and do that together and him to go, no, these are my boundaries and this is what I want from my life as an individual. What do you want from yours? And I was like, well, this is what I want. So now let's find a way to make it work together. So I've now gone back into my feminine, and we all have to have feminine and masculine. It's a complete imbalance if we don't. But to go back into my feminine and know that he's going to work and he's providing for us, and that is cool. He's paying the way until our business is at a point where we can both be on an equal playing field in that respect. But it's given me the opportunity to feel like I'm getting more enjoyment out of it too, because I'm just creating, just create, because that's who I am. And connecting with people, that's what I do. Like I said, I'm the letters, he's the numbers. He oversees the business side of things while I learn it, but it gives us more communication to go, hey, I don't understand this. Do you have a better understanding? Can you explain this to me? Or he's looking at content going, I don't know how you're doing that. I'm like, well, okay, so we talk about that. But it's actually given us so much more to talk about over the last few months even, because we're yin and yang, but we both bring something really incredibly powerful to the life that we're now creating.
And also, like, on the mom note, I actually read that a mother energy is more masculine than feminine. You would think about motherhood, about the most as the most feminine thing ever, because it is, but it's actually not. Like, we are the only beings who can create life inside of us, and we are the feminine, but that doesn't mean that it's a feminine thing to do. We really I can't tell yet, but from your story, I'm really understanding how actually it's a very masculine role, and how important it is to have then a relationship with a man, with a healthy man, that balance it all out.
You're right that it is more masculine, and it's finding that really fine balance. In fact, I did a reel recently about this, about how hard it is to be a girl mum, because we want them to do all the things they need to do to get where they want to be, to live their best lives and feel empowered and have their boundaries and such, and to create a women's circle around them where they feel seen and heard. In fact, I think it was Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City who said it best once, that our girlfriends are our soulmates and men are just someone to have fun with. And I love that, because it's about connecting that feminine energy. But the feminine energy in motherhood is the nurturing, the loving, the holding space. The masculine is setting firm boundaries, raising them, protecting them when someone tries to hurt them, says awful things to them. You literally become the lioness and you step in front of your child and say, you need to go through me. You need to go through me to get to my child, because until they are strong enough to hold space for themselves, I am accountable for them. So yeah, there is that masculine element to it, but it can really tip the scale if it's coming to a point where you're at loggerheads as well, and that becomes a really unhealthy environment. So it's finding that boundary where me as an adult is taking accountability, and I have moments. I'm in forced menopause, so yes, I can flick a switch really fast, not intentionally, and he knows it, not intentionally, but I can go from really calm and composed to extreme hot flashes, my entire body cooking from the inside up, and then everything just falls apart. And it is really hard to get back into that zone at times, particularly when the wheels are in motion all the time, where you're dropping someone here, doing this, that, having a conversation, needing to pick up groceries, all of these things. It is really challenging. So you need to find that really firm balance between respecting yourself and being feminine, acknowledging your masculine, but not letting it tip the scale to the point where it's affecting your relationships.
Amen. Wow. Very well said. We've now talked for a while. Let's skip to the last question. I'm very curious what will come up. So, we listen and we don't judge. Are you familiar with this?
No, but I'm intrigued.
So basically, this is a space for you where your partner will listen and won't judge what you say. You can say, for example, I don't know, I could say to my brother, I actually stole your charger and then lost it, and then like something like that, and he can't judge me. The only thing that he can say is, I listen and I don't judge. So something funny that you have never shared with the other, and the other can't judge you, and will just hold the information and say, I love you, I won't judge you, don't do it again maybe.
Something funny
Oh my gosh, I'm really trying to dig deep now.
that they don't know.
Yeah.
I tell him everything. Even things he probably doesn't want to know, to be honest. But, oh gosh, something I haven't told you. It could be if he has a beer. And when I say a beer, he'll have like a drink or two a week. That's it. Usually on a Friday night, he'll come home and that's his wind down. That's it for the end of the week. But he leaves them in the coolers on the bench and just sits them on the sink. And I'm like, but you've just walked past the recycling bin and the cupboard to get to the sink. So why not just take the can out and pop it in the recycling, or the bottle, pop it in recycling, put the cooler away, and it's done. So that drives me mad. That's definitely a pet peeve of mine. It's not the deal breaker, but it is very, very annoying that he's literally had to walk through the entire kitchen to put it on the sink. So he's gone past it twice and it's still sitting in the cooler. That does drive me nuts. The littlest thing.
Gosh.
But yeah, it does drive me crazy.
We listen.
And what do I get to
and
say?
we don't judge.
I love you, I don't judge you.
I don't know if it's going to change. Planted that seed and we've got it on camera, so I can always go back to this.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your fun times, your hard times. Your story is truly precious, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And thank
It's been
you, Nel.
great. Really, it's been eye-opening. We got lots to talk about on the way home.
We do have lots to talk about on the way home. Oh, we'll do Pacific Fair first. But thank you so much for having
thank
us.
you. It's
This
been
has
great.
been fantastic.
Awesome. It's been fantastic to have you. Thank you so much.
It's all right.
And just like that, even the third episode is over. Thank you so much for sticking with the podcast and continuing to listen. Every comment, every like, every message just makes my heart very, very, very happy. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you've enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to rate the podcast so that other people can find it as well. And don't forget to subscribe because other love stories are coming very soon. And remember, real love, real stories. So see you next week.